You guys starting off with Oregon. I know it's early. What stands out about them? I know they're a particularly tall team like usual under Dana, but what else stands out about them?
Yeah, I mean their average height is I think 13th in all of college basketball. So obviously a very tall team. Nate Biddle is a 7-foot guard out there that can really stretch the floor and shoot it. Kwame Evans, a kid that we recruited out of high school, 6'10" power forward that can shoot it, put the ball on the floor, and do some things down there. Really crashes the offensive glass. Sean Stewart, a guy that was at Duke and Ohio State, played against him last year. Incredibly high motor. Flies around, plays really hard. A couple really big guys off the bench, and good size at the guard position. So, yeah, big lineup. So obviously, one of the biggest things that stood out to me in some of their games that they had closer games was they ultimately ended up winning because they got offensive rebounds, and that's going to be similar theme to Houston is we're going to have to really do a great job of physically boxing out, because if you allow this team to get second chance points, they can obviously make you pay. They get 37% of their misses back, and if you were to look at the Rice game and probably the South Dakota State game, I would imagine that number was much higher in those games. So it's going to require physical checkouts because just getting a body on somebody is not going to be enough since they are so big and long. They're able to just kind of keep it alive and tip it out. And then they got some really good shooters on the perimeter that can make you pay if they do get those rebounds. So, but we can't get away from what we do just because they're so tall. They have tall bigs, but they have bigs that do play on the perimeter. So I think. I think we just got to, just kind of do what we do defensively. But obviously, once a shot goes up, it's going to be a war in there, and we got to do a great job of holding our ground.
Steven, I know everybody on staff's not really a stranger to the MTE format, but just for you guys as a first-year staff, how beneficial is it to have that circumstance where you're having to have the scouts at the ready and for these teams, and just kind of having this experience this early in the season for y'all?
Yeah, these are always obviously fun events, but they also are very. You learn a lot about your team, and you learn a lot about your staff. Really, I was at a luncheon yesterday with some of the athletic staff, and they asked the question like, what do you have to do to get prepared for these games? And it's so much more than just like scouting reports and watching film. Like you can break it down, on a molecular level, and I'll do it right now. So. You play a game, we play Oregon, and we get done, and the amount of things that have to get done as a program in order to get ready for the next one. All right, so, Kevin's got to go and get all the uniforms and find a place to get them all washed and ready to go. All the while, he was getting all the practice gear ready to go for the next day. So he's been, flying around, stressing out, getting all that stuff done. We got guys that are pretty banged up. Like, we haven't been healthy really since we all got together in June. So Clark, is going to have to be doing treatments from the time we get done to the time we play Michigan the following day. All right, Coach D's got to have to assist them in those efforts of getting guys, individual stretching routines, or getting guys, in the hot tubs, or whatever we have available at the facilities to try and help those guys get their bodies right for the next day. Okay, Emily's got to make sure all the meals are ready, to obviously make sure our guys are fueled and ready to go. And then in addition, all the snacks and all the drinks and everything like that. The managers have got to make sure that film is ready and set up when we get back to the hotel. The court is taped down in the ballroom. The million other things that we ask them to do every single day. The coaches have got to make sure that their scouting reports are printed out and ready to go, their film's ready to go, so we can sit down and get on to the next one as soon as we get done. Somebody's got to make sure there's coffee available. It's really important, But no, like, seriously, it's people just think you go out there and play 3 games. It's a damn production, in these events, and it really is all hands on deck. And you really got to lean on your staff in these situations because, you're only as good as the guy next to you or the girl next to you. And that's why our staff's been so successful because, you can rely on everybody to do their job. So, the kids kind of prefer it, I think, because these are short preps and short turnarounds. So it's more about just playing by your rules, trusting what we do, and then just trying to go out there and execute. And then, picking the 4 or 5 things that they do really well and, showing them those things and try how to stop it. So it's always a great litmus test early in the year to kind of see, where we're at. Obviously, Maui was probably probably the best field in Maui history, and to be able to go out there and win that was, really, really cool and a lot of fun. With 10 new guys going out to the Players Era, to be able to have the opportunity to play Oregon and then a top 10 team in Michigan. And, you look at this Oregon roster and, you look at the names and you're like, holy crap, like they're so talented. The Kai Simpkins kid was like one of the best gets out of the portal. And, he's probably their second or third guard. And they just, have a ton of talent. They have 2 guys that played professionally overseas last year, right? So they got a lot of really good players and a lot of good pieces, and they're a team that is just going to get a lot better as the year goes on. And obviously it was really great for them to get Shellstad back because he just does a little bit of everything for them. He's such an efficient basketball player. But no, I mean, great opportunities, but it's going to take the entirety of our staff, our starters, our bench, our scout team. The scout team's got to, they got to learn what the other team does in a really, really quick turnaround so they can make sure that we can walk through it. And, so everyone is super important in these environments, these MTE environments, these postseason environments, to make sure that we're as prepared as we possibly can to get ready for the next one.
Stephen, just an update on Keyshawn Hall, how he's doing, and will he make the trip?
Keyshawn's still out, just working with Clark every day, just trying to progress to, get back to 100%. Not sure when that's going to be. We're certainly not going to rush him back. We're going to let, Keyshawn make that decision with Clark. And, when feels like he's back to 100%, that's when he's going to be ready to go. So there's really no timeline on his return. I just know that he's, out there just working his tail off, trying to get back as quickly as possible. He will make the trip. Yep, he will make the trip.
Steven, you kind of mentioned, I think a couple of days ago, in terms of how they got up for the Houston game, and you kind of said something like, now you got to sort of repeat that. I guess how big will next week be in terms of, you're away from Birmingham, you don't have, all the Auburn fans, in terms of repeating the effort and the intensity against these kind of opponents like more than once now, kind of going forward?
Yeah, I don't think our guys are going to need any motivation to get excited to play against, one of the most successful teams in the previous Pac-12, and last year they had a great year in the Big Ten to go 25-10 and win 12 games in that conference. And then I think they won a couple games in the tournament. So they had a really good team last year. And then Michigan, top 10 team, #1 transfer portal recruiting. They're not going to have any problem for the rest of the year getting excited about playing teams. And if they do, we're going to get beat. If they don't, we're going to get beat. So playing against a Hall of Fame coach and Coach Altman, so much respect for just the job that he's done at Oregon and his 37th year overall. I don't think I'll be doing this for 37 years. So BP and I went out there a long time ago, like when we first got to Auburn, and kind of watched them and just how they practice, and learned a lot on that trip. So that was, I don't even think he remembers that, but it was really cool to kind of go out there and just learn from such a great coach. They got a lot of pieces this year. So, our guys, shouldn't have any issues getting excited about playing games moving forward. And I thought they responded well, in the Jackson State game. Thought they took them seriously. Thought we did a good job of taking away some of the things that they were good at, and for the most part, played hard. Obviously we've been fortunate to play in front of some home courts, and at the Boutwell and at Legacy, but in Atlanta there really wasn't a lot of people in the building, so that kind of felt like a MTE environment, and I thought our guys played pretty well. So. We haven't played in it before, so I'm not really sure what the crowds look like out there, but I would imagine there's not going to be a ton of fans from, either program there. It's more about just really locking into what we're doing offensively and defensively, and just trying to execute the game plan and go out there and play good basketball.
When you play 3 games in 3 days, you talked about how depth is important. How valuable was it for y'all the other night? You had 6 guys, you're really 7 off the bench, play a significant amount, and they got to obviously do more and, like you said, try to prove themselves that they can be reliable next. So how big was that, especially in this gap between Houston and playing the MT?
Yeah, I thought our starters, obviously exerted a ton of energy in that Houston game. So to not have to play more than, I think 24 was the most in that game is, it's good. it's great that those guys didn't have to play 30-plus minutes. We came out of the game healthy, which is more important than anything. And, we'll have 2 good days of practice, really three good days of practice, 1 out in Vegas and 2 here in Auburn to, obviously get ready for that first game in Oregon. So, I thought the bench played better in the game, but I think for me, the biggest thing for them is going to be showing me that you can do that, against an Oregon, against a Michigan, against some of the better teams on our schedule, because it's going to be important. Like Philip's got to, I told Philip, I was like, that's what I expect from you to do. Like that's what the expectation is now. Just deliver, and was good to see, Simon and Caden play well. But Oregon's a lot different than Jackson State. Michigan is a lot different than Jackson State. So I'm still of the mindset of I'm allowing these guys to kind of show me in practice and in games like who is capable and who's going to earn those backup guard minutes right now to give Tahad, KO, Elijah, and when Key gets back, Key some relief at those positions. So mine hasn't been made up on anything based off one game. Still kind of in the same mindset of kind of an open audition right now for those backup guards to kind of show me what they got.
Going off of that, Mech's had a couple of DNPs, but he was in here, after the first one being like, I'm just going to stay ready. How have you seen him respond? Obviously, it's a little different, with injuries and moving some guys around up front, and he's a guy that's still relatively new to this whole thing.
Yeah, I love Mech, man. He's so coachable, and he's such a wonderful kid. I got so much love for Mech. I feel bad because, kids that are very coachable get yelled at more because the other ones can't handle it. So Mech gets the brunt of a lot of people's anger, and he doesn't deserve it. But he just says, "Yes, sir, I got you." And I think in the game on Wednesday, he didn't impact a ball screen, and Tahad wasn't pressed into the ball screen. Called a timeout and got after him. Next possession down, he impacts the ball screen. It turns into a dunk on the other end. So he picks up on things quickly. He makes adjustments. He wants to get better. He's just such a sponge. So it's just such a coachable kid. But yeah, I think he's played well in games that he's supposed to play well. Obviously, he hasn't. He didn't play in the Houston game, so didn't have the opportunity to kind of show what he's got. But obviously, his whole thing is just got to stay right and stay ready because if Key's out on Monday, which there's a good chance he could be, Mech's got to step up and play. And he's not playing against a traditional 5-man. He's playing against a 5-man that can shoot the 3-ball. And that's going to be different for Mech because Mech's instinct is anytime the ball gets penetrated, I must go block that shot. And you can't do that in this game because that guy can obviously make threes at a high clip. So be a great challenge, for him. But, in a 3-game and 3-day stretch against the first 2 teams we play are 2 of the tallest teams in college basketball. He's got to be ready to go out there and give us quality minutes, whether there's injury or foul trouble or we just need an extra body out there. So, I know he will be because he prepares, with the best of them, and, he'll be excited and ready to go.